Thank you very much for having me, Tohid. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everyone. Extremely delighted to be here with us and just diving in quickly. My learned friend, Tohid, has taken us through the corporate establishment and structuring aspect of this presentation. Also, your IP, financing, and insurance aspects are all channeled towards ensuring that you reduce your cost of making profit as an SME and also protect the company's delicate resources. In the next few minutes, I'll quickly proceed to spend a few minutes to give you snippets, I must admit, of your tax and real estate needs. There are so many, but then just a few should be okay for you to make you understand why you need to focus on tax and real estate. Now, the SMEs listening to me will agree that when you want to register your company, tax is something that you have in mind already. It's always on your mind. And this confirms the popular saying that nothing is more constant in life than death and taxes. Interestingly, some people are even born and they die without paying taxes throughout their life. Anyway, for SMEs, the first real appearance of tax is usually the need to open bank accounts after you incorporate your company and fulfill other compliance requirements highlighted by Tohid earlier. Sometimes the bank asks you quickly, where's your CIN? And CIN is tax related, so certainly tax is very important. Previously, SMEs had everything to fear because the tax system looks unfair in the sense that big and small companies are brought under the same tax rate, while SMEs have a higher cost of tax compliance. However, now the fear has reduced significantly. The first lesson point today is my announcement, and I'm glad to announce to those who are unaware that the company's income tax rate for when your turnover is 25 million naira or less is 0%. Interestingly, such companies are also exempted from VAT for remittance of value-added tax, what in this presentation will be called VAT. Now, quickly, another lesson point is that for SMEs that are registered as limited, PLC, or unlimited, the company's income tax fees you pay would apply to the company itself as being different from you that own it as a director. However, for business names and partnerships, you will pay your taxes in the form of personal income tax rather than paying company's income taxes. At this point, I'll quickly run down the taxes that apply to SMEs. The first is the tax I just mentioned just now, the company's income tax. All resident and non-resident companies incorporated in Nigeria are expected to pay company's income tax depending on certain criteria that a competent tax lawyer and accountant will usually give you extensive advice on. This is in accordance with the relevant Nigeria law, in this case, the Companies Income Tax Act, which has been amended by the Finance Act of 2019 and the Finance Act of 2020. This tax is usually paid into the designated FRS, that's Federal Inland Revenue Service channel. Now, the FRS is the government agency that administers companies' income tax. You pay your company's income tax to them and you file returns. Now, quickly, for SMEs that gross turnover are 25 million naira or less, remember I mentioned earlier in my announcement that your company's income tax rate is 0%. But interestingly, that does not exclude such SME from other tax compliance obligations, such as filing your company's income tax returns. Now, in simple language, your company's income tax return is a financial or accounting statement of your financial position as a company that will entitle you to the 0% tax rate you are claiming. So if you want to really claim your 0% tax rate, then you have to file your returns for the FRS to see clearly that truly this SME is entitled to 0% tax rate, which is zero anyway. Another interesting point to note under company's income tax is that the FRS usually expects you to employ the services of an external auditor, or generally a qualified auditor who will prepare your who will compute your income tax liability as a company and then assist you in conjunction with the competent tax lawyer to file your return. In summary, the Finance Act that I mentioned earlier, 2019 and 2020, for companies that are earning below 25 million, they pay 0%. For companies that are earning 25 million, between 25 million and 100 million, I mean in Naira right now, not in dollars, they pay companies income tax at the rate of 20%. While companies whose turnover are above 100 million pay the previous tax rate of 30%. Note that, please, as an SME, it is important for you to begin early enough to comply with your tax obligations. Even if you don't pay taxes, failure to file your company's income tax return alone will attract a penalty of 25,000 naira for the first month of default. And for each subsequent month that you default, you pay 5,000 naira. Now, for an SME managing its financial situation, you would agree that this is something that you need to run away from. And that is what tax lawyers, including myself, do, helping you to reduce your corporate income tax obligations. Now, the second tax that you pay, applicable to SMEs, especially those SMEs that involve in trade, sale of goods, and rendering of services, what they call VAT, value added tax. And the value added tax is the consumption tax. It's an indirect tax. Unlike company's income tax that is directed towards the company, the VAT is directed towards goods and services. The applicable law is the VAT Act, which was similarly amended by the Finance Act of 2019 and 2020. There are some goods and services that are exempted from value-added tax. An entity, whether a limited liability company or an enterprise, who deals in goods and services are liable to remit back to the FRS. Now, very importantly, I will mention two things among so many other things that are relevant to VAT. The first thing is that by the Finance Act 2019, companies, SMEs of course, that do not make a turnover of up to 25 million naira will be exempted from remitting VAT. So similar to companies' income tax, SMEs that are not earning, whose turnover are not up to 25 million, are actually enjoying right now, unlike previously when both big and small companies are brought under the same tax rate. Interesting times indeed. Apologies. Another point we need to take note of is that there's a controversy right now going on between the state government and the federal government on who should administer VAT. In essence, for SMEs, the question will be, as an SME, who should we pay VAT to? Now, that matter is currently at the Court of Appeal, and a part of it at the Supreme Court. But then the advice that is given to taxpayers right now is to continue to remit their VAT or like new SMEs, for them to register for their VAT with the FRS. The outcome of that case will determine what will happen thereafter. And this is the major reason why you can run an SME that has high targets and that has a bold future without having a competent tax lawyer by your side. It is very dangerous. It is even more expensive than what you think. Another point, very important point, is that VAT previously was charged at 5%, but now is charged at the rate of 7.5% of your taxable supplies. That's your goods or your services. Another applicable tax, just so I don't overshoot my time. Another applicable tax is the personal income tax. Personal income tax is imposed on individuals. For SMEs, SMEs that are registered as business names or that are partnerships, we usually pay personal income taxes. And even when they have staff under their payroll, they have the duty to pay the personal income taxes of their staff under a scheme popularly called pay as you earn, what people call payee. Now, unlike the two previous taxes we mentioned earlier, the personal income tax is paid or remitted to the state internal revenue service, the applicable state internal revenue service. For example, I'm in Lagos. The SMEs in Lagos are listed as business names or companies that have staff. We remit their personal income taxes to the Lagos State Internal Revenue Service, what we know as LRS. The rate for personal income tax is not static. We can do an average tax rate, but it's not static in the sense that it is graduated. You pay tax by what you earn. So basically, the higher you earn, the higher your personal income tax will be. The next tax is what we call withholding tax. There's been academic arguments that this is not a tax, but in essence, we call it a tax because it is levied by the government. It's what they call an anticipatory tax or an advance payment of tax. Basically, a withholding tax is an advance payment of tax deductible at cost on specified transactions. Note that word, that specified transactions. Those specified transactions can only be competently revealed to you by a tax lawyer because it is in the law. But then, what happens basically with this is because the government knows that many people escape without paying taxes, what the government now does is when somebody renders a service or sorry.
Sorry, Kolade. Sorry.
Thank you very much. So when you render a service or you supply goods, the payment the purchaser is making to you, or in services, the payment your client is making to you, withholds, the client, withholds 10%, or as the case may be. The tax rate is not static here. It depends on the transaction involved. So in essence, the client withholds that money, 10% of that money, if it is the applicable tax rate, and then eventually goes and pays it to the SIRS. That's your withholding tax, basically. Maybe just like a summary. Where is it? Yes. So your withholding taxes, the one you pay on dividends, interest, and rent, is 10% for companies, 10% for individuals. For which one am I applicable to SMEs now? Okay, for SMEs that are involved in general contracts and agency arrangements, like agencies for land and other sales in the ordinary course of business. For companies, you remit withholding tax of 5%, and for individuals, it's similar, 5%. So that's about withholding tax. So some general points to take note of is immediately after you incorporate your company as a CAC and comply with other obligations as highlighted by Tohid, the first thing you do is to register with the SRS and get your CIN. Your CIN is your tax identification number. Importantly, as to save time and cost, you can inform your lawyer or your accountant to run the CIN obtaining and the VAT registration at the same time. It saves time and it saves cost. And within like 1 week maximum, you would have gotten your CIN and you would have registered for your VAT. You have to file your returns regularly in line with what I've mentioned. They have mentioned that VAT is 7.5%. There's some other applicable taxes to companies. I mean, companies now, the limited, the PLC, the unlimited, you have to pay education tax of 2% of accessible profit. Now, not just profit, accessible profit. That is something that the accountant and the lawyer will help you to ascertain. You have to also pay NITDA levy. NITDA is National Information Technology Development Agency. They are the body in Nigeria that govern data protection. Now, for upper boundary companies, by upper boundary companies, I mean companies that make above 100 million turnover. I mean, those are big companies. They are not SMEs. They are no longer SMEs. So I guess NITDA levy is now applicable to SMEs. You also have petroleum profit tax. You have capital gains tax, which is very relevant to real estate, and stamp duty. These two taxes are paid concerning your land. Maybe you want to buy land, or you want to, you are a tenant or a lessee, a person who they give land to for a specified number of years. So the CGT and the stamp duty will generally apply to you as an SME. So basically, those are your that's an overview of your tax obligations as an SME. I've tried to simplify it so well in line with the timing. How many minutes do I have left for you?
The time is actually up because of, we still have a long list of speakers. We still have like 6 speakers so that we can run through in the interest of time. Well, I think unless you want to make any closing submissions on your points, yes.
Yes, just a closing remark before it exhausts. So the closing remark is that real estate and taxation are very wide areas that you must comply with as an SME that is aiming high and that has bold future ambitions. So what you need to do is get a competent lawyer by your side to make sure that these things are explained to you one after the other. Immediately you register, even before you register, you need to do it. This, I can assure you, will reduce your exposures and make you maximize profit. Lawyers are actually cheaper than you think. Thank you.